Okay, Ryan, would you mind? I need to restart my system so that the camera.
Okay,
would...
that's fine.
Yeah, okay, so I'll be back shortly, please.
No problem.
Hi, Ryan. What time does the meeting start?
It starts in 5 minutes, so 10 a.m. West Africa time.
All right. I just joined. I didn't know exact time. Sure, thanks.
Yeah, so 5 minutes.
Sure.
So, hello, Ryan.
Hi there.
Okay, I'm back. I had to do some technical glitch.
That's okay, don't
So
worry.
good to have you. So your meeting starts in about 2 minutes from now. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mind? I would like to record your session.
That's
for
that's absolutely fine.
okay. All right. I would like to also say hello to our participants. We have Nchimunya. We have we have the great Alex Baguidi. We have Robin Barty, Susan De Andre. Okay, they are coming up. They are coming up. I had to put a leash on the admittance so that, you know, because yesterday we experienced some funny things, so we had
Right.
to
Yeah.
put a leash so that we don't, so not just anyhow persons can gain access.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
All right.
Would you like me to start exactly at 10 o'clock, or do you want me to wait 2 minutes just to let people join?
I'd like for you to wait 2 minutes. No. English, yeah. Ryan. Yeah. Yes.
I can hear Mercy. I can hear Mercy, I think.
You can hear. Okay. He's laughing. He's like, I hear you. All right. Okay. So you can start. You can start now.
Of course.
Thank you. All right.
So welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to listen to me talk today. It's an honor to be here talking to WIA Africa. Hopefully what I've got to say is of interest to you. My topic today is on bottom-up change management. For me, I've attended too many conferences in my lifetime, but the one thing that was always missing from conference talks was, two things. The first of which was interactivity, which is sometimes hard to replicate virtually. But secondly, actionable things that you could actually take away and use tomorrow. So what I'm going to try and do today is definitely hit that second part, i.e. trying to get things that you can take away and do tomorrow with your teams. So where this topic came from, and I suppose I should start by saying who I am. So I'm based in the UK. My name's Ryan. I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. And I primarily teach Scrum. That's what I do, but I'm also an active consultant. So when I say an active consultant, what I mean by that is that I work with large corporate organizations, primarily in the UK, but some abroad, to help them with their Scrum implementation, or generally just more agile. So I work sometimes as a product owner, sometimes in teams that choose to leverage Kanban. And we're also key partners with the Crown Commercial Services, so the UK government. So we're a preferred provider with them. We also have links with a company called the Forces Transition Group. So we support military veterans through free training and pro bono work for the military, which we're really proud of. And we also have our affiliation with Scrum.org as a partner training network provider. But all of that just goes to show I'm very happy to be here today. And please, you are very welcome to connect with me, ask any questions following up from this this talk, unmute yourself and just ask questions. My link tree is also just shown on that opening slide, so you can see who I am, and you can also see the rest of my links. I'm going to talk for about 30 to 40 minutes. Conscious we have got an hour slot. I don't think I'll fill the entire slot. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for questions. So please do feel free to ask them. But my topic is going to be on bottom-up change management. I'm going to start off by talking about what it is, where it came from, and importantly, the story of success. So the second half of this talk is going to be me talking to you about how I've recently been a change manager. And how I went about it. It wasn't perfect. I mean, God knows it wasn't perfect. However, we did make some successes that I think are better than perhaps some of the models that are out there today. So where this talk came from, I read an article, a 2005 article, 17 years old. You can see the authors in the bottom left-hand corner there, Sirkin, Keenan, and Jackson. It's old school, because I wanted to find out what change management was. And I'll be honest, when I first read the paper, I didn't see the date. I thought it was modern, I thought it was recent, and I just read it, and I didn't like it. The idea about change management is quite obvious. It's about trying to bring about a change. But what you can see there in that word cloud, incidentally, if nobody's ever used a word cloud before, you can just take large portions of text anywhere online and post them into a word cloud generator. And words that are larger are more frequent in the text. So in this case, you can see big words that you might expect: change and management. But look at some other words that were present: manager, milestone, scores. That is not what we think of as change management now. Or maybe we do, because there are two types of change management. There's bottom up, which I'm going to be talking about today, which I would argue is a preferable option. But there's also top down, where managers control, they command and control. There's a couple of words, though, that I did like to see: commitment, team, challenges. That is the change management that I know and love. But their frequency was just not there. And even if you do choose to go away and read that article, what you will see is that those words weren't used in positive ways. The manager makes commitments for the team. They commit to the change. No. It wasn't good. So what that made me think about change management was, is change management agile? Well, not necessarily. We think about change and adaptation. We tend to synonymize those two words, but they aren't the same thing. Well, I like to say any idiot can change what they're focusing on, but being agile is the ability to pivot purposefully towards value. There was irony in that report that Sirkin, Keenan, and Jackson spoke about. Change has, over the past 20 years, changed. It has gone from this top-down approach to being more favored by bottom-up. But not many people know how to do bottom-up management effectively, and that's what I'm talking about today. What we want, and what I want, and hopefully what you folks who are listening want too, is we want the way we manage change in organizations to be different. We want it to be better. For me personally, I prefer it to be smaller scale. That's a great concept in Agile. It's a liberating structure, right? It's called 15% solutions. Even if we change that to a 1% solution, what tiny small change can we make that improves? It compounds over time and makes us better. And that is what I desire change management to be. And that is the overwhelming focus of the story that I'm going to share with you a little bit later. Small incremental steps determined from the bottom. And when I say top and bottom, even though you know what I mean top is the C-level executive board members and the bottom being the little people, the people doing the work. I think that's quite a mean term. I don't like people being called the bottom. However, we are referring to the hierarchy. So please accept that I don't mean that these people are any less. In many cases, they are more than the top, in my opinion. So I've talked about what change management is, and more importantly, what it isn't, in my opinion. But I want to drill in now to the title of this talk. It's about bottom-up change management. And I spent probably a good 2 hours online looking for a really good definition to share, and I couldn't find one. So I wrote my own. In my experience, bottom-up change management is poorly defined for two reasons. The first of which is that people aren't very good at it. It feels like you're losing control. The second reason is simply that people view it to be really costly. And it's not. It's the cheapest type of change management you can do. Take something to the team, ask them what they want, and empower them as an organization. That helps you for one really good reason. You know what you're changing is valuable. Now, I could stop the talk there, but I'm not going to. My definition for bottom-up change management is where ideas flow upwards from the teams, from those people who are doing the work. Their ideas flow upwards. It's not management telling you what to change. Now, there's going to be lots and lots of quotes during talks because I love giving quotes from famous people, more because they're probably cleverer than I am. The first quote I want to start with is by Steve Jobs, right? Everyone knows Steve Jobs from Apple, sadly no longer around. And his quote was, "It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do." That's so powerful. That's saying, why am I spending $100,000, $200,000 paying someone's salary if I'm just going to tell them what to do and think of things for them? That's the idea of bottom-up change management. Get those people to tell you what the right thing is. Now, I don't want anyone listening to think I'm making a statement that managers are bad, because they aren't. In fact, manager is considered to be a positive stance of a scrum master. I mentioned that I'm a professional scrum master, but what isn't cool is when we think of change managers as bosses. That's not a positive statement. If managers boss around, not good. But if a manager supports with an idea and says, what do you need? I will make it happen for you. That is where bottom-up management can thrive. So my question to you, if you're in an organization, a large organization, is why then, even today, do we persist in allowing one person or a small group of people, senior executives, make decisions? It's just silly. They're too far away from the problem. In the UK, we have a phrase called long handle screwdriver management. It's where they're so far away, they can't actually do much, but they will still try. Now, nobody on this call knows this, but before I became a professional Scrum trainer, I was obviously a Scrum master. Then I was a head of chemistry. I was a chemistry teacher. But before that, I actually worked in mines. I was a mining engineer. I was drilling at walls. And we have this concept, it's called the coalface, working at the coalface. People who are the closest to the problem, i.e. at the wall that you are drilling at, call out the problems and identify how things can be improved. It's not the person on the surface, because they haven't got a clue what's going on. And before I move on, the one thing I do want to state about change management is that it typically depends on the industry you're in. If you're in a highly regulated industry like pharmaceuticals or banking, you typically do have more top-down change management, but that doesn't mean that bottom-up change management can't thrive. What you want to do is create the culture and the space for teams to be able to manage themselves and get those ideas flowing up. Now, before I get into the meat of this talk, I want to share an image. You can tell I drew it because it's not very good. However, this is the takeaway from this talk, I believe. How many people can identify with that? A faceless manager on the top of a cliff saying, "Oh, is everyone okay? Are you okay down there?" And the people at the bottom going, "Who is that? I have no idea who that is." To tell you a story, my dad is 45 years ago, he started at his company. He started as an apprentice. He was fixing machines. Now, over 45 years, he's now the vice president of a global company. Recently, and in fact, quite frequently, he goes back to where he started his work. Nobody knows who he is. So when he says things, when he tries to top-down manage, even though he probably thinks he knows what he's talking about, his ideas are 45 years old. You've got to trust the people who are in the current position. To liken this to Scrum, change management is a product goal. The change you are trying to achieve is your product goal. Build a product backlog for that change and allow teams to work on it. There's nothing hard or clever about change management. But the problem that we have in many organizations right now is that when we talk about change management, we talk about it being managed from the top. But the problem is when it's being managed from the top and it goes wrong, who gets the blame? Well, it's those people at the bottom of the cliff going, "Who's this person?" But when things go well, it's the guy at the top of the cliff getting all the praise. That's not acceptable. My second quote for this talk, Elon Musk. If you've never read it, his 7 top tips for boosting productivity, Google it after this talk, you will find it hilarious. One of his tips, and he sent this to his Tesla employees, was skip the chain of command when necessary. What he's saying there is, don't just go through a chain of command. He even followed it up by saying those who insist on following the chain of command when it doesn't make sense will not find themselves at Tesla for very long. A good change manager sets the vision, but importantly, it is transparent to the employees that are going to be doing the work. Without the transparency, without the visibility, the accessibility, and the understanding, how can the people doing the change know what they're trying to achieve? Imagine a typical hierarchy, a pyramid structure. One person decides the change. We're going to do X, and he tells his or her 5 or 6 managers and says, teams, I need you to improve that. If you've ever come across the old, game kids play, Chinese whispers, right? Every time someone whispers it, there is a different interpretation. If you've got one person telling 6 people, you've probably got 6 interpretations of that change. If each of them have 10 people in their teams, that's another 60 interpretations of that change. There needs to be one clear talk, one clear message, one clear goal, but it doesn't mean it came from one person. It just needs to be transparent. And there are lots of models for change management. So when I looked at trying to be a change manager, and when I was trying to manage the change that I'll talk about soon, I looked at these 3 models. There's Kotter's is the top left, the big opportunity, they call it. It's a ring of 8 kind of concepts, stages, where you create, build, form, and then finally you get to this position of institutionalizing it. It goes in one way. Sorry. We also have the McKinsey 7S model, shared values, which actually isn't that bad, in my opinion. We also have the nudge theory at the bottom. Clearly define your change, consider changes from your employee's point of view. The bottom one, in my opinion, is the best model of change. Incidentally, this is from an article by a guy called Mulholland, I think it's Brett Mulholland, and he wrote it actually just late last year, trying to compare and contrast different models of change. And he talked about the positives and the negatives in each of them. And you will notice that in 2 of them, they mention employees and staff, but they don't start with staff. Clearly defining your change, look at that nudge theory one at the bottom. You're defining your change and then you're going to your employees. Why not flip those 2 around? Why not ask them what the change is, i.e. what the problem is, and then help them to define the change? It's simple when you think about it. Ask them what they need and help them to change. Now, the old model of PDCA, plan, do, check, act, that empiricism, that can apply to change. It can apply to product development. It can apply to everything in your life where there is an element of complexity, where you don't know what's going to happen. And change is a complex environment. Now, I know I'm probably teaching a lot of those people on this call to suck eggs here, but many of your organizations still don't get it. The top-down change management is preferred because it is simple. We pay those people at the top a lot of money. There is a huge argument, in actual fact, there's some really good books about it, about basically flat hierarchy. Everyone is equal. Everyone gets paid the same because everyone has an involvement in the value that is being delivered by the company. Just because you're doing different things, why should you get paid more? So flat hierarchy is really cool. And actually that kind of creates a culture where bottom-up management can thrive. So those are the change models that I'd considered. And to be honest, I didn't really like any of them. They didn't fit with our culture. Now, I'm not one of those people that says immediately, if you don't like a model, make your own. However, none of them fit the culture I wanted to create for the change. And so we tweaked. In actual fact, based on that bottom one, on nudge theory, we built our own change structure. And I'll share it with you later. And it's not perfect, but you can let me know what you think. And I want to share something that I found online. When it comes to change, the first step you will take will almost certainly be the wrong one. We can all empathize with that statement. But what you have to do is you have to try and make that first step. But isn't it liberating knowing that no matter what you do, no matter how much you plan, and again, that's something a lot of organizations like to do, over plan, you're almost certainly still going to get it wrong. So why do you need to do all that planning up front? Why can't you just try, take the first step and find it out? Take the initiative. The first thing I always tell people when it comes to change management is you have to embrace failure. You are never going to get it right the first time. Change is innately a human paradigm. And so when we come to change management, it's not only important to fail, it's vital. You can't change without it. And let's just consider that point for a second, that we can't change without failure. Imagine everything went well. Everyone you felt was transparent on the change you were trying to achieve, and you move forward. If you didn't fail at any point, how do you know there wasn't a better option out there? You need to fail to adapt and improve. It is vital to fail during environments where complexity is present. Consider a river flowing. Rivers are awesome things, powerful. Imagine it's just winding and weaving its way down a cliff. Over time, that river will cut and erode a direct path. That's what rivers do. They find the simplest and most direct route to get to their goal and their destination. As a change manager, your job is not to move the river. Your job is to give the river the power to identify the route for itself. Over time, your teams, the people doing the change, will find a better way than you could possibly have imagined of doing something. It is your job to empower the teams to simplify. As Albert Einstein once said, in fact, I think it was Albert Einstein, he said, "Any fool can make something bigger, but it takes a genius to make something more simple." And he followed that up by saying things need to be simple, but not too simple, basically. You need to experiment with change in your organizations within the boundaries of professionalism. I like to liken this to my child. I have two young children. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 3-month-old. And with my 3-year-old, I need him sometimes to fall over, to cut his knee. But if he tried to run into the road, I would stop him. I need to create the boundaries for my child, and when it comes to change management within the organization, so that they know when to fail, how to fail, and how to do it safely. Use common sense first when it comes to change. Don't be afraid to take an incorrect step, because eventually you will find the right one. And as Thomas Edison once said when he was making the light bulb, I found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb, but I only needed to find one way to achieve it. 2,000 opportunities to fail, one chance, or all was needed was one step for success.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi there. Hiya.
Good morning. Thank you so much for speaking at today's event. I hope
very...
you don't mind if we live stream your session, because the goal for us, we want to give all the speakers visibility on all the social platforms. Is that okay?
That is absolutely okay with me.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So that's what I want to say. The first step you take will almost certainly be with the wrong one. So that is liberating when it comes to change management. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. So here's the model that we came up with. And this is not the final model. I'm just going to share what we initially started with. We wanted to start with supporting people. We wanted to start at the bottom of this structure and say, What do you need from us? What problems are you facing? We then wanted to move them to a position where they could co-construct the change. So if you consider the bottom bit, it's getting transparency on what the problem is, what change is required, starting at the bottom-up change management, and then allowing them the freedom and the flexibility within professional boundaries to co-construct the solution. And we enabled them, we moved them from support to co-construction through empowerment. We said, what do you need? And we will give it you. If we can give it you, we will give it you. The plan was then, once they'd come up with this co-construction, they'd come up with a plan for change. Is we would trust them. We would say, even if we don't think that that's the right thing, we trust you to try. And you allow them to try. They test it, they probe it, they do whatever is needed to validate whether their plan for change was correct. And what you find when people test is that they get it wrong. They take those wrong steps and they iterate and they change. But over time, the bit that I particularly love about this model, and I know that's arrogant because I created it, but that ability to normalize, which came from Kotter's model, they call it to institutionalize. The bit that allows you to move from testing and experimenting and iterating to get to a position of stability is failure. Failure is the bit that gets you there because it tells you what you need to improve. It makes you consider what you value. And incidentally, the reason why this model I think has been quite successful is because it doesn't matter on the size or the scale of what you're trying to achieve. Every individual needs to be involved at the support side. Whether you're the person doing the work, whether you're HR, whether you're marketing, whether you're the sponsor, everyone needs to be involved at the bottom. And then you build up the model together until you get to that position of normalization. And what we found when doing this was that actually these stages can move through quite fast. In fact, we did our whole change. Well, we got to the test phase at about six weeks, and then we had to normalize for a long time. We found that the normalization of change needs time to bed in. The sponsor of the change, the person who, is on it, who owns the change, needs to be present for a long time. It's not about sitting on people and controlling them. It's about helping them to still see that you are supporting their change. It's like homework as a child you get from school. If you loved that piece of homework, you didn't need your parents sat there saying, do your homework, Ryan, do your homework. But if I hated it, for me, if it was biology, if I hated it, I needed someone there saying like, come on, you got to do it, you got to do it. If you buy into the change, if you buy into the value, in my analogy, the homework, you don't need to be forced. You will embed that change yourself. You will test, you will probe. It's almost from the Cynefin complex domain. You will probe, you will sense, and you will respond until you get to that position of normalization. So I want to share now what I did and how we did it. So we did it over the series of 3 workshops. This is my story of success. We did 3 workshops, and the first one we called Calling It Out. This was at that support level. It was focused on achieving 3 things. What is value? What process do we need to do? And how can we gain transparency? And we did a couple of things to start with. We importantly created boundaries for the discussion. I always find when people attend workshops, particularly ones where they have lots of people, there's about 30 in ours, you created the boundaries. So here there are no hierarchies or roles here, only people, and every opinion is equal. When you're at the supporting level, it's important that no one is in charge. And the bit I love was there are no ulterior motives. We're not trying to trick you into saying something. There was a basic agenda, but the focus was on building support and empowerment, that first step in our model. There's a lovely quote there from Peppers and Roger. Transparency increases the cost of hiding the truth. More efficient interactivity exposes truths that used to be inexpensive to hide. What they're trying to say there is, as a change manager, as an agile coach, whatever job title you want to give yourself, it is your job to make it so painful and costly that you have to change. Someone once gave me an awesome quote about being an agile coach, and they said, you're not doing your job properly if you're not currently pissing someone off. And although I don't necessarily agree with the entire sentiment there, what they're trying to say is you need to constantly challenge the status quo. So in this workshop of calling it out, we gave them 3 topics: people and organization. So the human side of change. What do you need to change, or what would you like to change from people? Process. What would we change process-wise? And then technology. So people, process, technology. Almost very similar to a retrospective in Scrum. We also gave them statements about what we perceive to be good in the people and the processes and technology, and we gave them negative. So I know you can't see it because it's off the bottom of this mural. However, at the bottom, there's very long boxes, and depending on where you thought your post-it, your sticky note, was, is it a good problem to have, or are we actually really bad at something? And it internalized, and it helped people to psychologically realize, hang on, I'm writing something that is super bad. And so you could start going forward problem-wise with those things at the very bottom. You've got to start off by calling the problem out in the same room at the same time with everybody. You can't just have half the people there, someone important, nah, sorry, I've got something more important. Everyone needs to buy in to this. The second workshop we did after calling it out was, where do we go? This was separate. This was 2 weeks later. We importantly created space for people to think and learn about, right, that was what was called out. How could we consider improving it? And the focus here on this change management was diving deeper, ideation, and experimenting. This is the co-construction level of our model. And we demonstrated trust to them by saying, right, we're not going to tell you how to fix this. I want you to tell us what solutions that you would input. Gloria Steinman has got a lovely quote there. Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. And so what we did, again, we created those boundaries. We accept that we can't please everybody. When you've got a large group of people, it's very easy to say, oh, yes, we will do that. We'll do that. We'll do that. People need to understand the realities at play. We can't do that. But importantly, delivering value is why we're here. Solutions we suggest are value focused, not just for ease. So what we're telling people there, we're demonstrating the trust we give them to say, don't just choose easy things that you think we're going to agree to. If you think something is big and it needs a pervasive change, please tell us. So again, same topics as last time: people and organization, processes and technology. What would you do to fix it? To fix those problems that we had last time, what solutions have we got? And one thing you'll notice, hopefully now, as we're moving through the support to the co-construction, me as a change manager has done nothing. I've facilitated, but I've not put in any problems. I've not put in any solutions. The team have done this. So if things go wrong, they're bought into it, and it is also on them, but it's on me as well to create the culture. And if they ask me for something, it's my job to give it them. So we've now had calling out at the support level. Where do we go at the co-construct and trust? And then 2 weeks later, so this was all done within a space of 4 weeks. If you imagine week 1, week 2, and week 4, solutions and actions. And this was a bit more of it. This is a different workshop. So this is where so myself as a change management manager and some other people got together and said, right, we've got all these solutions from people. We know we can't please them all. What do we want to take forward? I know you can't read this picture, and that's okay. And to a certain extent, it might even be a bit confidential. Well, it's not confidential. But what we did was we identified the information that they wanted, and we rationalized it. We clearly stated how our change was going to be achieved. Initially, we set the goal of what we were trying to achieve and the initial forecast of how we were going to achieve it. If you looked at the team I'm working with now, this plan is not what we're doing. But I'm just talking about the purpose here. So the benefits and what we were doing in this solutions and actions were solutions, experiment, and clarity. We were working at that third level, testing, failing, and normalizing. So we were trying to break this model almost. And this last quote, Barack Obama, the real test is not whether you avoid this failure, because you won't. It's whether you let it harden or shame you into inaction, or whether you learn from it, or whether you choose to persevere. I mean, Barack is awesome, right? Anything he says, you could turn into a quote. But isn't that awesome that what he's saying is, don't let fear or failure shame you into doing nothing. We've probably all been in organizations where we go, oh, I just can't make that any better, and you give up. Please don't let that break you. Bottom-up change management attempts to remove that feeling because you are constantly empowered and driving it yourselves. The final part of this story of success is, even at the final level of testing, we were still getting them to ask questions. And you can see that there were plenty of questions that we needed to take away and iterate and refine. So going back to the model, where are we now? Did it work? Yes, it did work, actually. The normalization bit we needed to stay at for a long time. But it was kind of like, and I know I was relating it to product goals in Scrum. We had our change management. We had our product goal, if you like, defined. Once we'd achieved that and we felt like we normalized it, we had a baseline. We could then set another product goal for change management, and we could move towards that. Where I changed this model is, I wish I'd drawn slides like chutes and ladders, snakes and ladders. Yes, you can climb up, but it is not unidirectional. You do not only go up, you slip. You fail so bad, you need to go back to the beginning and plan again. That's how I would change this model. But none of the steps that allow you to move, we felt like we needed to change. We started off through empowerment, we then trusted, and we failed to a position of normalization. Remember, it doesn't matter about the scale you're trying to achieve change through. Every individual must not just understand the why, but it is also integral that they are involved in defining the how. Just pause and think about that for a minute. Whoever is doing the work of the change is the one defining the how. Because at the end of the day, if I'm a change manager, I'm not going to be doing the majority of it. Change management at the moment it's almost like a not a very desirable job title, because it sounds overly restrictive, very process heavy, very right. This is the change. These are the plans. It's going to be executed. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised to hear a lot of change management is still done using things like Gantt charts, project management plans. That to me is just crazy. For those of you who do know a bit more about Cynefin, right? Things where you overly plan, right? Things like waterfall in the complicated domain. That's when where more is known than unknown. More is known than unknown. How on earth do you think change, a human-driven concept, is simple enough to be able to apply a waterfall methodology, a Gantt chart, something that can easily be planned out? You are crazy. It is complex. You need to frequently inspect your change, how you're progressing, where you're going from here, and make small improvements and tweaks. The one piece of advice I would give you in terms of the adaptation: yes, you need to frequently inspect and adapt, but don't adapt, and this is where it diverts a bit from the Scrum framework, I would propose that you don't adapt immediately. Give it, if one person recommends an adaptation, take it to the team, fine. Just give it a day or two, just to see if it's a bedding in problem. So don't adapt straight away, particularly early on in your change. But if after a week or two, people are coming up with adaptations, you can do that straight away. I'm just trying to say that at the start of change, particularly when it almost is chaotic, again, if we're talking about Cynefin, just allow it some time where it will probably move to complexity, where you will start to see things normalize a bit. I'm going to start wrapping up this talk now. But that was the model that we came up with that helped us be successful. But actually the concepts are nothing special. That is just a visual that has helped me put it together. Support your teams, get them to construct the solution to the problem, allow them to test and iterate incrementally, and then allow it through failure to get to a position of stability and normalize. Allow them to go backwards if they need to. And that is it. That's how I think change management that can be done successfully from a bottom-up perspective. Start with the people to identify the problem. We typically see in many organizations right now this concept of choice, which is great. However, it tends to be a choice when it comes to change management of freedom versus restriction. Either I do the model that I've just spoken about, freedom, but people feel like they lose control. Those managers who are paid a lot of money, they feel like they lose control, they don't have much to do, and that they feel like they know better and it could go off the rails. The other end of that spectrum is restriction. I will top-down manage this whole thing because I know best and I will tell people. It's more comfortable for senior managers. What I want to tell you, and I want one of the key takeaways from this talk to be, is that you don't have to choose between freedom and restriction. If you're in a corporate regulated industry, you are probably going to swing maybe a bit more towards restriction. Hopefully not at the full end of the spectrum, but you are going to be more restricted, and that is acceptable and it's okay. It's like with the Agile Manifesto. Imagine this was a statement in the Agile Manifesto. Basically, freedom versus restriction. Whilst we see value in those things on the right, we value the things on the left more. We value freedom, empowerment, co-creation of solutions to bring about change. How can you do it? How can you move from the right to the left? It's a key part of that Agile Manifesto, and frameworks like Scrum and Kanban and XP and whatever you choose to use want to try and help you move to the left. As change managers, as senior managers, as C-level executives, create the boundaries. Create the boundaries of the professionalism we spoke about earlier. Share the vision for the change, the overwhelming desire and need, and then let your employees tell you what they need. It is that simple. It just requires trust and acceptance that people will get it wrong. If you can change your mental model that things will go wrong, you will fail, you are 90% of the way there to improving your change management. So, wrapping up, I said I was going to take 45 minutes and I should be just on track. The takeaways, the clear takeaways from here. Successful bottom-up management occurs when goals, projects, and tasks are informed by employee feedback. This goes, and this is true no matter which employee. It's not just your favorite ones. It's not just your middle management. It is from the people doing the work. If you get their feedback, you will find out. There is a wonderful talk by Dave Snowden. I can't understand half of the words that man uses because he is so clever. But he has a wonderful talk about working with the Australian military. And the idea was basically that he went into a lot of senior military leaders and said, what do you think about your military? What would people tell you about it? Oh, it would be positive. Everyone would love it. It would be great. And he had this idea of creating ethnographic, I think he called them ethnographic mapping or questionnaires. And he basically went around and he found out the ethnography. And I'm not talking about race here. I'm talking about things like length of service in the military, gender, and he asked their opinions. And he could then go to these senior leaders and say, you think this is all great? Look what I've got. Here's this one really super negative review. And they said, the statement was, and I can't quote it because I saw this video probably a year and a half ago, was because the question that was asked to these people was, would you recommend joining the military? And the statement someone wrote was, no, I would take them out the back of my house and shoot them, and they thank me for it. Really negative. Obviously, I don't agree with the sentiment of shooting people. And the military leader said, oh, that person's just disgruntled. It's a new joiner or someone just at the end of their career. And they found out this was a 20-year service, warrant officer, female, and basically military leader. She'd stuck it out. And because they had this employee feedback, they knew who it was direct. It was easier to adapt and accept it. Depersonalizing the feedback is important as a change manager. It's not directed at you. The change isn't owned by you. It's directed at the situation and allowing you to move forward. The other takeaway is the earlier that employees get involved, the greater your chance of success. This is certainly what we found. We started with them, we found out what they needed, and we were solving their problems. So we immediately got more buy-in from them. We weren't telling them that we knew their problems, because trust me, however senior you are, however important you think you are, and how much you know your employees, you don't know their job 10% of what they do. They go through the pain every day. Ask them what the problem is. Again, there's a great story. Ken Schwaber, founder of Scrum, apparently once went into Oracle to do some consulting. He turned up an hour early. He asked to go onto the floor and ask the employees what the problems were, because he had a meeting with the board later to do some coaching. Turned up, yes, all of our people are fantastic. They're loving their job. And he said, well, I disagree because I've spoken to them. Oh, great, Ken. Thank you very much. A year later, he got a call again from Oracle. Ken, can you come back and help us? And he said, what improvements have you made based on what we spoke about last time? Yeah, we didn't really do any of that. And he said, no, thanks. I'm not coming back. If an organization isn't willing to listen to what their employees say, value it, and help them to change, not cool. The sponsor of the change must remain present. I've been through this one a fair bit. You, in my case, me, needs to be present to answer questions and help create the transparency. Even if I didn't come up with something, again, like in Scrum, even if a product owner didn't come up with a requirement, it is their accountability to create the transparency and understanding on that topic. And finally, it will take time to normalize. Restrict frequent changes, adapt purposefully, and remember that if you don't adapt, if you don't change, you're never going to go anywhere. Just to reiterate, and the final thing I'll say in this talk is that remember what Barack Obama said. Don't let fear of failure shame you into inaction. Start at the bottom and work your way up. Thank you very much for listening, folks. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. I'll happily take them from the chat, whatever you want.
20-something. They're still asking questions. Okay. Hello, Ryan.
Hello.
I totally enjoyed your session. I have a lot of pointers, and I'll be tweeting them as time goes on.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I really did learn a lot.
You're very welcome.
All right. So Mercy would like to say something before you do.
Of course. Go for it, Mercy.
Hello. Can you on your camera? Okay. Hello. Sorry, Ryan. I want to sincerely appreciate you for making the time to speak today. Personally, I do not take this for granted. I think it was a crazy, audacious attempt to have multiple speakers at the same time. I didn't anticipate the workload personally.
Yeah.
And all of us didn't anticipate it. But I want to overall sincerely say thank you to you for making out time to be part of this experience and making history with us as we evangelize Africa. Honestly, you need to go to our Twitter feed and see all the content and the pointers that you've raised that we have tweeted out. Naya is our first experience on this type of work, and she's just been exceptional. From all of us completely, we say thank you so much for making history with us and for being part of this experience. Thank you so much. I hope there's question for you. And if you don't mind, please drop your LinkedIn so people can connect with you directly. That's it. Idowu, we're looking forward to your session too soon. Okay, so I'll hand over to you. Please drop your LinkedIn. Please connect with Ryan. Ryan is all about Africa. I remember him reaching out to me. It's about to make impact with Africa. And that's why you see people like this make out time to give of their expertise. Do not take them for granted. It means a lot to all of us. And we have to be the change we want to see in Africa. It starts with you and I. So Ryan, thank you so much from all of us, all the team members. Thank you so much for your session.
You are very welcome. You're very welcome.
I think somebody's hand is up. Yeah.
Yeah, Louisa, please feel free to unmute and ask a question. I don't know if Louisa has the permission to unmute herself. There we go. There you go, Louisa.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the talk. We're actually busy with a similar thing in our company at the moment. We've asked some of the team leaders to exactly what you were saying. You've got a blank slate. Please come and tell us what you'd like to change and how you do it. Right. What I want to know from you is often you get people coming back and say, okay, this is not working. We need to change it. And then we go back and they say, okay, guys, we've now actually challenged them and says, okay, we understand we need to change it, but you come in with a solution. You come and tell us how will it work? What can you do differently to actually make it work, right?
Yeah.
My question to you is, if you get to that point, how do you make sure it actually gets implemented? Because especially in a company where you're busy with something different, now you're trying to drive this change. It feels like the change always gets on the wayside, you know, the people are focusing on the actual project work that they need to do.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that change actually, even if it comes from the team, how does it make sure it gets implemented?
Sure. So the first thing I want to address with your question is, it's not your job to force and make sure that they do change. They have to want to do change. That's the first important thing. So the first thing that the organization needs to do is to create the culture of acceptance and, more importantly, the space for them to do it. That may well be providing food if they're doing Scrum during a sprint retrospective. It may well be creating just a really nice environment for them to have the opportunity to do that. It's also alongside that, ensuring that anybody that is planning the work, setting focuses and goals, allows and understands that there will be capacity for improvement. You need to tell them that if it's in software, I typically work in software, that writing code is just as important, if not less so, than improving their product and their process. Over time, the value of the code they've written will diminish, but the iteration and the improvement that they've made in their process will continue to improve. So that's the first step. The organization needs to create a culture where change is wanted and accepted. The second step that you can do is explain to them, give them training and coaching. And this is not me selling services. However, if they need to understand the benefits of change, then someone needs to sit them down and tell them why change is important. Not that they have to change. That's a very distinct difference. You need to explain to them and coach them on why change is important. It's all part of creating that culture that allows them to move forward. Does that answer your question, Louisa? Yes, brilliant, fantastic. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you? You are very welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. As Mercy said, I'm very, very positive about supporting Africa. Alex Bagwidi, who's also on this call, me and him are looking forward to doing a lot of training in Africa. So do reach out to us if we can help you in that. We really want to support the continent, really passionate about helping you folks move forward with your agility. Is there anything else, folks, that I can help with? You can put it in chat, or you can just talk. Thank you very much, Alex.
Okay, Ryan, without further ado, I think that will be all. Thank you so much. We appreciate. Thanks for coming through for Women in Agile Africa. I'll connect with you on Twitter, and hopefully would get to collaborate. Thank
Brilliant.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful day, and do connect with me if you need me. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye.